Silence is power. It's not emptiness, it's not weakness. It's the clearest signal of someone who masters their mind and doesn't need to shout to assert themselves. In a world where everyone is competing to speak louder, the one who knows how to keep quiet becomes presence, respect, and authority. Because noise confuses, but silence orders. The Stoics understood it. Every word has a price, and spending them without measure is to lose authority. Speaking less doesn't mean hiding. It means that when you open your mouth, what you say has the weight of a rock falling into water, leaving ripples that no one can ignore. That is true respect. Not the one that is asked for, but the one that is imposed with control and firmness. This video is not empty theory, it's practice for your daily life. Here, you will learn to speak less, to gain respect, to listen more than you respond, to keep your privacy, to let your actions be the voice that speaks for you. You will discover that silence is not an uncomfortable void, but the discipline that turns someone into a master of themselves and a being impossible to ignore. Stay until the end, because here we are not talking about keeping quiet out of fear, but about keeping quiet out of strength. The silence we are going to explore is not passivity, it's presence. And when you learn to master it, you will stop being one more in the crowd to become someone impossible to overlook. 1. Speak less to gain respect. Speaking less to gain respect is like holding a lit torch in the dark. You don't need to move it in all directions for it to illuminate. It's enough to hold it steady, and everyone will see its light. The same happens with words. You don't need to fill every silence with explanations or comments to be noticed. In fact, the more you talk without filter, the cheaper your message becomes. A person who knows how to be silent when others rush to speak conveys a confidence that can't be bought. It's felt. Controlled silence becomes a magnet, a reminder that whoever practices it has an inner mastery that elevates them above the crowd. The common mistake is to think that talking a lot is synonymous with intelligence or power, but the reality is that verbosity wears out and dilutes the strength of what you want to convey. If you say everything that goes through your mind, you stop controlling the impression you make, and in the end, you end up losing the respect you seek. Speaking less is not withdrawal, it's strategy. It's choosing the precise moment when a single sentence can have more impact than an entire speech. That's what made the Stoics great. They didn't waste their words, they used them like arrows that hit the mark. Now, how to start applying this in your daily life? The first tip is to learn to resist the urge to respond instantly. Not everything you hear deserves an immediate reply. Hold your silence for a few seconds before speaking. Analyze if your response really contributes something or if it's just noise. That small habit will give you an air of calm and firmness that others will notice. The second tip is to limit the need to explain every detail of what you do. You don't have to justify yourself at every step. Whoever constantly gives reasons for everything they do projects insecurity. Let your actions speak and your results be your arguments. Another practical tip is to set boundaries in conversations. Avoid speaking just to fill uncomfortable silences. Allow the other person to speak and observe. That observation will give you an advantage, because while others wear themselves out in words, you gather information and keep your energy intact. It's also useful to train yourself to say short and clear sentences instead of long justifications. Each word should be like a precise hit, not a scattered rain that no one remembers. Speaking less is not hiding your voice, it's giving it real weight. Whoever learns this art understands that strength is not in quantity, but in quality. Every time you control your impulse to speak more, you will gain a respect that is not asked for, it's imposed. And when your words are scarce but firm, others will know that listening to them is always worth it. That is the true authority of silence. 2. Listen more than you respond. Listening is like standing in front of a river. If you only talk, you stay on the shore throwing stones, generating noise on the surface. But if you stop to observe its course, you discover how it flows, what it carries, what it hides at the bottom. This is how communication works. Those who talk too much miss the opportunity to see what really happens in the minds of others, while those who listen attentively gain access to valuable information that many overlook. Active listening is a power weapon because it not only gives you control, it also allows you to better understand the terrain in which you move. The mistake of most people is to respond faster than they listen, interrupting, finishing sentences for others, or thinking about the answer while the other person is still speaking. This anxiety to answer reflects insecurity, as if staying silent for a moment was a sign of weakness. However, the opposite is true. Silence while listening communicates calm, patience, and control. People respect those who know how to restrain themselves because they know that when they speak, it will be with clarity and not with impulsive reaction. How to put this principle into practice? First, get used to listening without interrupting. Let the other person finish even if you feel you already understood. In many cases, the most valuable comes at the end, when the person feels comfortable enough to reveal what they really think. Second, ask questions instead of giving automatic answers. Asking not only shows genuine interest, it also gives you more time to analyze and respond firmly and accurately. Each question opens doors, each interruption closes them. Another tip is to train your body language to listen. It's not just about keeping quiet, but showing that you pay attention with your gaze, with an open posture and without distractions. This creates a powerful impression because whoever feels listened to respects the listener. Authority is earned not only by speaking well, but by knowing how to receive what others express. Also, try to mentally note what the person is saying instead of preparing your response. This change of focus transforms the quality of your conversations. A practical habit you can adopt is to count to 3 before responding. This brief space breaks the impulsive reaction and gives you control. It is enough time to filter what you are going to say and to show that you do not respond lightly. This small gesture will make your word be perceived as firmer and more thoughtful. You can also aim to respond with shorter and more focused sentences, avoiding unnecessary embellishments. Thus, every time you speak, there will be a clear contrast with the previous silence, increasing the weight of your voice. Listening more than you respond does not mean staying mute. It means prioritizing observation over reaction. Those who listen understand better, those who understand act better. And when you speak after having listened attentively, your voice is not an echo of the common noise. It is a decision charged with certainty. That is what makes the difference between just another person in the crowd and someone whose presence is respected in silence. 3. Avoid constantly justifying yourself. Justifying yourself all the time is like walking around carrying a huge mirror in front of you. Every step you take, you show it to others, trying to convince them that your reflection is valid. The problem is that while you're busy explaining and demonstrating who you are, you lose the strength of simply being. The need to justify every decision, every mistake, or every silence does not convey confidence. On the contrary, it makes it clear that you're seeking approval, and nobody respects someone who lives asking for permission to exist. The truth is simple. When you over-explain, you give more power than you should to those around you. Each justification opens the door for others to question, to analyze your life as if they had the right to decide on it. Speaking less and letting your actions be enough is the way to project firmness. The Stoics knew this. They didn't seek to convince with endless speeches. They were concerned with living coherently and letting the facts speak for themselves. How to apply this in everyday life? First, understand that not everything you do needs an explanation. If you make a decision, Hold your decision calmly and without embellishments. You can respond with simple and clear phrases like, "It's what I consider best," or "That's how I prefer it." That brevity sends a message of confidence. Second, learn to tolerate others' judgment without falling into the temptation to clarify every detail. Silence in the face of criticism has more impact than 1,000 words trying to defend yourself. Another tip is to detect when justifying becomes automatic. Often you explain small things, from why you don't want to go out to why you didn't answer a message on time. This habit creates an image of weakness. To break it, start by observing your daily responses. If you notice that you give unnecessary reasons, correct it on the spot. Speaking less and more directly is a training that strengthens your character. Practicing emotional control is also useful. Much of the justifications come from the fear of losing others' approval. When you learn to let go of that need, your way of communicating changes. Breathe before responding. Remember that you don't have to explain every step, and that respect is not obtained from explanation, but from the firmness with which you hold your decisions. Even at work or in the family, being clear and brief projects much more respect than surrounding your words with excuses. Let the consistency of your life be your real argument. If your actions reflect what you say, you don't need to convince anyone. And if someone doesn't accept it, it's their problem, not yours. When you manage to avoid constant justification, you'll discover a powerful silence. That of a person who doesn't beg for approval, who doesn't ask for permission, who simply lives with control. That silence is worth more than any speech, because it conveys what all justification cannot: inner authority. 4. Keep your intimate moments to yourself. Exposing your entire life is like leaving your house door open all day. Anyone can come in, look, criticize, or take whatever they want. There are things that become valuable precisely because they are not within everyone's reach. Your intimate moments, your deepest thoughts, and your most important plans are a treasure. And sharing them with anyone is like giving away the keys to what should be only yours. Silence, in this case, is not just prudence, it is protection. In a society where most people feel the need to show everything they do, from what they eat to what they dream, keeping the essential secret makes you different. Respect arises when others perceive that you do not reveal everything, that you keep a space just for you. That mystery generates curiosity, but above all, it generates strength. Because what is not exposed, is not contaminated, is not judged, and is not weakened. How to practice this lesson in everyday life? Start by selecting who you share the important with. Not everyone deserves to know what you think, what you feel, or where you are going. Talk about your plans only with people who can really contribute something, not with anyone who listens to you. That filter is a shield against unnecessary criticism and against the theft of your energy. The first key is to discern between who wants to support you and who just wants information to give their opinion. Another tip is to resist the need to post every achievement or every detail of your life. Real success does not need announcements. It is noticed in your way of walking, in your calm, and in your results. Keeping silent about what you build does not mean to diminish its importance. It means to give it value. The less noise you make about what you do, the more surprising the impact will be when others see what you have achieved. Let your life speak with facts, not with constant updates. You can also practice this habit in everyday conversations. When someone asks you too much, learn to respond without opening up too much. You don't have to be rude, but you do have to be firm. Brief responses like, "I prefer to keep it private," or "I am working on it my way," convey respect. By doing so, you make it clear that your life is not a show open to the public, that firmness generates admiration, because not everyone has the control to keep the intimate in a world that lives off exposure. Finally, remember, that your intimate moments are the ground where you grow in silence. Reflect, write, keep for yourself what does not need anyone else's gaze. That private space is your source of energy, and protecting it is a sign of intelligence and maturity. Whoever shows everything becomes empty. Whoever keeps the essential remains strong. In the end, the silence that surrounds your intimate moments is not isolation. It is the wall that protects what gives you power and that no one else deserves to touch. 5. Let your actions be your voice. A tree does not need to announce that it bears fruit. It simply shows them in silence, and that is enough for everyone to respect it. No one hears it speak, but everyone seeks it for what it delivers. So should your life be fewer words, more deeds. Because in a world where everyone promises, opines and boasts, the one who demonstrates with actions becomes someone impossible to ignore. Noise can impress for a moment, but results always impress. The habit of speaking more than what is done is a subtle poison. It promises easily, talks about grandiose plans, fills the air with intentions, but without concrete deeds, those words become smoke. And the worst thing is that whoever gets used to talking about everything they will do and never fulfills it loses credibility. Respect is earned when people see that what you say is reflected in your way of living. That's why the Stoics insisted that virtue is practiced, not discussed. They understood that silent actions weigh more than adorned speeches. How to put this into practice? The first advice is to stop announcing everything you plan to do. You don't need to tell your goals to everyone. Work in silence and let the results speak for you. This generates surprise and respect. The second advice is to focus on fulfilling what you promise, even if they are small things. If you say you will do something, fulfill it without excuses. This habit builds a solid reputation because others learn that your word is reliable. Another important advice is to establish priorities. Often a lot is spoken because there is no clarity in what really matters. If you select 3 key tasks a day and fulfill them, you will be speaking with facts instead of filling the air with promises. Also, learn to measure your achievements by your own criteria, not by the need to show others what you have done. The strongest validation is the one that comes from consistency with yourself. You can also practice strategic silence. If someone asks you about your plans, respond calmly without going into unnecessary details. Phrases like, "I'm working on it," or "I prefer to show it when it's ready," keep you in control. In this way, you protect your energy and reinforce the idea that your value is in what you do, not in what you say. At the same time, you train the discipline of not wasting energy on empty explanations. Let your deeds become your best argument. When your actions speak for you, you will no longer need to convince anyone with words. The strength of what you achieve will be enough to earn you respect and recognition without asking for it. That is the true power of silence, not to adorn reality with speeches, but to build a life so consistent that even without words, others understand who you are. Because ultimately, the echo of your actions will always be stronger than the noise of your words. 6. Preserve your energy by avoiding disputes. Engaging in unnecessary discussions is like pouring water into the sand. No matter how much you spill, nothing remains. The energy you spend defending each opinion or reacting to each provocation is lost in a barren ground. Silence, on the other hand, is like storing that water in a safe container, ready for when you really need it. It's not about giving up or keeping quiet out of fear, but understanding that not everything deserves a response, and that your energy is too valuable to be spent on battles that change nothing. Most people fall into the trap of fighting over everything, from family arguments to absurd debates on social media. They believe that keeping quiet is losing, when in reality the true defeat is wearing oneself out over something that does not contribute to growth or respect. The Stoics knew this. Arguing with fools only makes you part of the same noise. The greatest victory lies in not engaging, in maintaining calm, while others wear themselves out trying to drag you into their territory. How to apply this in everyday life? First, learn to identify empty disputes. If a conversation only seeks to provoke, criticize, or trap you emotionally, keep quiet and do not feed the fire. The one who remains silent at that moment does not lose, they win because they maintain control. Second, establish a personal criterion of what deserves your response. Not every comment at work or in your social circle needs a defense. Choose to respond only when your word can change something real. Another tip is to practice emotional self-control. Many arguments arise from the impulse to defend your ego. Before responding, pause and ask yourself, does what I'm about to say serve any purpose, or does it just feed my pride? That brief reflection can save you from spending hours in a pointless conflict. It is also useful to train yourself in firm but brief responses, such as, I'm not going to argue about that, or everyone has their own opinion. With these phrases, you set a clear boundary without letting yourself be absorbed into an endless fight. A powerful habit is to reserve your energy for what truly matters. Invest your effort in projects, personal goals, healthy relationships, not in discussions that change nothing. Each time you choose silence in the face of provocation, you are strengthening your character. You are demonstrating that not just anyone can knock you off your center. That calmness, seen from the outside, generates respect because it reveals self-mastery. Preserving your energy by avoiding disputes does not mean that you should never defend yourself. It means that you choose your battles. And when you decide to speak, your word will carry weight because you did not waste it on useless conflicts. That is the difference between someone who wears themselves out at every clash and someone who stands firm with enough energy for what truly builds. The next time someone tries to drag you into a senseless fight, remember, your silence is not weakness, it is strategy, and in that control lies your true strength. 7. Use your words as seeds. Words are like seeds that you throw into the earth. Some fall on fertile ground and over time produce fruits that nourish. Others are lost on arid land and die without a trace. The difference is not in the seed, but in the way you choose to sow it. The same happens with what you say. Each word you release has the ability to build or destroy, to inspire or wear out. Speaking less, but with intention, turns your voice into a fertile ground where what you say will always have value. Most people speak without measuring consequences, like those who throw seeds into the wind without thinking where they will fall. This habit turns conversation into empty noise. Misused words wear out relationships, lose impact, and make you look like someone impulsive. On the other hand, when you speak measuredly, people pay attention because they know that what you say is not waste. That is the strength of silence combined with the right word. Each phrase becomes memorable, each opinion leaves a mark. How to apply this lesson in everyday life? First, practice selection. Before speaking, ask yourself if what you are going to say has a clear purpose. If your answer does not provide clarity, motivation, or direction, remain silent. This habit prevents your voice from becoming noise and reinforces the impression that your word always arrives at the right time. Second, focus on quality rather than quantity. A firm and brief sentence can be more powerful than a speech full of embellishments. Another tip is to use your words as a guide, not as a weapon. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. If you choose to express yourself in a calm, direct, and confident way, your message will penetrate more than any shout. Remember that the seed does not germinate immediately. It needs time. The same happens with your words. Many times what you say today will grow silently in the mind of the listener and bear fruit later. This patience in communication is a sign of strength and control. It is also important to avoid verbal waste in unnecessary discussions. Each word you invest in an empty conflict is a seed that will never germinate. Better save your energy and sow in conversations that really build. Speak when you can inspire, advise, guide, or defend with dignity. And when you decide to be silent, make it clear that your silence is not a lack of opinion, but the decision not to sow on sterile ground. Finally, practice coherence. Words lose value if they are not backed up by your actions. The seed needs water and care to grow. In the same way, what you say must be accompanied by facts that confirm your message. Otherwise, your voice becomes an empty promise. Speak less, sow better. Let your phrases become seeds of respect and trust. Over time, people will seek your voice not because it is abundant, but because each of your words is like a seed that blossoms into truth and firmness. 8. Value the discipline of silence. Silence resembles an invisible wall that protects your mind. It cannot be seen, it makes no noise, but it keeps distractions, judgments, and external provocations at bay. Whoever learns to raise this inner wall finds a fortress that few possess, because while others wear themselves out responding to everything they hear, the person disciplined in silence conserves their energy, masters their emotions, and projects an authority that needs no explanations. The common mistake is to believe that to be silent is simply not to speak. In reality, stoic silence is a discipline, a constant training of self-control. It is about mastering the impulse to have an opinion at all times, to resist the need to justify yourself and not to react with words to every provocation. This practice, which seems simple, is actually an exercise in power. The more control you have over what you keep silent, the more control you have over your entire life. How to start cultivating this discipline? The first step is to recognize your impulses. Every time you feel the urge to speak, ask yourself if your words are necessary or if they only seek to fill a void. That brief pause becomes mental training. The second step is to practice daily moments of conscious silence. You can dedicate a few minutes a day to be calm without the need to speak, just observing and breathing. This habit strengthens your ability to maintain calm, also in the midst of conversations and discussions. Another practical tip is to limit the consumption of external noise. If you spend the day surrounded by empty conversations, irrelevant news, or unnecessary comments, it will be more difficult to cultivate your own silence. Choose carefully which voices you allow in your life, because silence is also protected with the boundaries you set against the environment. By reducing external noise, you will find it easier to master the internal one. The discipline of silence is also exercised by learning to leave spaces in conversations. You don't have to respond immediately or fill every pause with words. Well-used silence creates tension, respect, and curiosity. When you speak after having kept silent, your words have a greater impact because they feel like the result of reflection and not of impulse. This contrast between being silent and speaking with intention turns your voice into a valuable resource. Finally, remember that the discipline of silence is not about living in isolation or keeping absolute silence. It is about intelligently choosing when to speak and when to be silent. Practicing this virtue allows you to maintain control in tense situations, protect your energy, and project a firm presence. By valuing and exercising silence as a daily discipline, you will transform your way of being in the world. You will no longer be someone dragged by the noise of others, but someone who chooses with clarity and mastery. And that decision-making ability is what inspires true respect, because it reveals that behind your silence there is an inner strength impossible to break. 9. Turn mystery into your strength. The moon never explains why it shines, it simply appears in the sky and transforms the night. Its power is not in speaking, but in the mystery that its silence provokes. In the same way, the respect and attraction you arouse in others do not come from how much you say, but from what you keep silent. Being an open book may seem like transparency, but in excess, it becomes a weakness. On the other hand, keeping parts of your life, your mind, and your essence in reserve creates a magnetism that no one can ignore. The most common mistake is to give away your whole story at once, to show every thought and expose every detail of your life. Whoever completely undresses in words loses that halo of respect that mystery grants. It's not about hiding who you are, but understanding that not everything deserves to be revealed. The Stoics spoke of controlling what depends on you, and among those things is your ability to decide how much you show and how much you keep. Mystery is self-mastery, and therefore it is power. How to apply this principle in your daily life? First, practice restraint when speaking. Do not reveal all your plans, do not expose your deepest emotions to anyone, and do not feel the need to justify every step you take. Let others see results and not processes. That reserve creates respect and prevents others from using your information against you. Second, keep your personal life separate from your public life. You don't need to share everything you do on social media or discuss every aspect of your intimacy in conversations. The less they know about you, the more solid your character appears. Another practical tip is to cultivate the art of responding briefly. Not everything you are asked deserves a detailed explanation. You can answer with short, firm and confident phrases that close the conversation without leaving cracks for questioning. By doing so, you convey confidence because you make it clear that you do not need external approval, nor do you wish to satisfy everyone's curiosity. That attitude, seen from the outside, generates intrigue and respect. It is also important to reinforce the mystery with consistency. It is useless to be silent if your actions contradict your silence. When your decisions and behavior are firm and clear, what you do not say becomes a space for admiration. Others perceive that behind your silence there is more than what they see, and that perception gives you power without the need to utter a word. That is the type of presence that is not forced. It is built with discipline and control. Turn mystery into your strength by remembering that not everyone has the right to know you in depth. Let them slowly discover what you decide to show. Keep the most valuable for yourself, and let the hidden be part of your magnetism. In a noisy and transparent world to the point of exaggeration, being reserved becomes an act of rebellion and self-respect. And that respect transforms into respect from others. Because whoever does not reveal everything demonstrates that they have an internal value that does not depend on the gaze of others. 10. Live for yourself, not for approval. Walking in search of others' approval is like moving forward with a mirror tied to your chest. Every step you take is done while being aware of how others see you reflected. This burden takes you away from your own path because your decisions stop being yours and become responses to others' expectations. On the other hand, when you learn to live for yourself, you break that mirror and move forward lightly, guided by your own vision and not by the public's gaze. That is the true power of silence, to stop explaining, to stop demonstrating, and to start living firmly for yourself. The need for approval consumes more energy than it seems. Every word said to please, every exaggerated gesture to fit in, and every repeated justification to be accepted are small leaks of your inner strength. The result is obvious. You end up exhausted, empty, and without self-respect. The Stoics taught that freedom is achieved when you learn to depend only on your judgment and not on external noise. Keeping silent in the face of social pressure is one of the greatest demonstrations of character that exist. How to apply this in daily life? First, make decisions based on your values, not on others' expectations. Before acting, ask yourself if you do it out of your own conviction or out of fear of disappointing. That simple question will give you back control of your life. Second, practice silence in the face of unnecessary criticism. You don't have to respond or justify yourself every time someone doesn't understand what you do. Learn to let the comments pass like wind and stay firm on your path. Another practical tip is to limit the habit of seeking validation. Stop posting every achievement waiting for reactions. Stop telling every decision waiting for approval. When you do something big, do it for yourself and let your results speak for themselves. This not only generates respect, but also frees you from emotional dependence on others' opinions. True authority is built when your life is based on what you choose, not on what others applaud. It is also helpful to surround yourself with people who respect your authenticity instead of demanding that you fit into their molds. The discipline of silence at this point consists of filtering the voices you listen to and giving priority only to those that really contribute. The rest, ignore it firmly. Every time you choose your own criteria over the noise of others, you strengthen a more firm, more serene, and more respected presence. Living for yourself is not selfishness, it's coherence. It means recognizing that your value does not depend on external applause, but on the inner strength you cultivate every day. When you learn to walk without seeking approval, you will discover that the most solid respect is the one that starts within yourself. And that silent firmness is what makes the difference between someone who gets lost in the crowd and someone who leaves a mark with every step. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment "I am Stoic" as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.